our base case is 650,000, but that base case was set before the SEC approved the Bitcoin ETFs. And so we are more convinced now that our bull case of 1.5 million by 2030 is the more likely case.
Bitcoin is the safest, smartest, and most unstoppable asset on the planet, and it's on its way to $1.5 million a coin in just 5 years. That's the latest prediction from Cathie Wood, CEO of ARK Invest. Bitcoin is the financial story of the century. Cathie, one of the sharpest minds in finance, is doubling down on Bitcoin's potential, projecting a staggering $1.5 million per coin by 2030. It has achieved escape velocity. Countries like China have tried banning Bitcoin, but its decentralized nature means no one can control it, shut it down, or even dent its growth. It's secured by the largest computing network in the world, making it the safest and most hack-resistant cryptocurrency. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video as Cathie Wood reveals more exciting insights about her prediction. Also guys, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy staying up to date with finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind. Now, here's Cathie Wood on why Bitcoin is the best asset.
Warren Buffett famously has said, if I don't understand it and I don't understand most technology, I'm not going to invest in it. Now, he did invest in IBM kind of at the wrong time, so that proved to reinforce what he was saying. However, he didn't give up. He did invest in Apple, and that's been, a grand slam for him. So, but very little interest in technology, and a lot of people pay attention to him, especially more value-oriented investors, where, in technology, you've got, very often, you have to invest aggressively. A company has to invest aggressively in the short term, forgo short-term profitability in order to be able to scale longer term in this new technology. Value stocks tend to be, what you see is what you get immediately. So there's a little bit more faith in the future, I would say, when it comes to tech investing. And, I'm certainly over 50 and, I'm all about technology. So a bit of maybe an exception there. But I do think there's just a general discomfort, especially because they lived through the tech and telecom bubble and bust. And they weren't looking at it with the perspective I just shared with you, which is, okay, these seeds were planted back then. They weren't ready. And so if you weren't doing the kind of research we're doing in terms of trying to figure out when technologies are ready for prime time, then they were going to get hurt. And a lot of people did get hurt back then. And so that's a memory. Losing money is painful. It's I know there are studies, you probably know the studies, where it's much more painful to lose money than it is enjoyable to make money.
I think the risk reward on that was the gain of $1 was equivalent to like the loss of $2. So like the loss feels twice as worse as like gaining $1.
Yes. The third way to think of Bitcoin, so we've got technology, global monetary system, and a new asset class, which is why we are really excited. And, the ARK 21 shares Bitcoin ETF is a good example. We have enjoyed tremendous inflows. And I'd like to think it is because we wrote our first piece on Bitcoin in 2014. We've earned our stripes. We had our first white paper with Art Laffer, Could Bitcoin Serve the 3 Roles of Money? That was 2015. And then we wrote our second white paper, Bitcoin, Ringing the Bell for a New Asset Class. That was 2016. And finally, the SEC approved earlier this year many Bitcoin ETFs. So we think institutions have not moved very aggressively thus far into Bitcoin. Why? It's because they need to do their due diligence. They need to, we've spent 10 years doing this, so we're very comfortable. If you look at BlackRock, for example, until I'm going to say 3 years ago, BlackRock was pointing to the negatives associated with Bitcoin. And then, of course, there was the conversion. And fantastic. I think BlackRock has done a lot for this movement of Bitcoin into a new asset class, but we've barely begun on that.
What price targets do you have for Bitcoin? Everyone loves this.
Yes. So we are in print. Our base case is 650,000, but that base case was set before the SEC approved the Bitcoin ETFs. And so we are more convinced now that our bull case of 1.5 million by 2030 is the more likely case. We've passed escape velocity. There's no way to shut Bitcoin down. And China tried. And all the activity that was in China just migrated. There's no oversight. There's no throat to choke. And it has proliferated to such an extent and is serving a really important role, especially in emerging markets, where people, of various countries, if their leaders either don't understand economics or there's corruption, and they lose purchasing power and wealth, to the tune of 50% in a very short period of time. Even this year, Egypt, I think it was the beginning of March, devalued the Egyptian pound by 40%. And so having an insurance policy like Bitcoin is really important in emerging markets. I mean, you've seen the corrections are violent because it is so early and so young. The corrections used to be 95%. Now they're more like 75%. That's a lot. So I don't want anyone to think that it's straight up and to the right, because the corrections are pretty violent. They're getting less so. And I think as Bitcoin moves more into mainstream investing, the volatility will go down dramatically. So it's not like we're saying it won't go down. It will. It's a new asset class. And there are a lot of, I would say, weak holders. They get in because of FOMO, so fear of missing out. And then they lose 20%, and then they get out. They cut their losses. So that exacerbates moves down.
Bitcoin's hash rate just hit a new record as miners push their rigs harder than ever. The network is stronger than ever, showing that Bitcoin's momentum is unstoppable. After the halving in April 2024, mining slowed down briefly. By July, miners came back with better equipment and ramped up operations. The result is a steady rise in mining activity and a more secure network. Bitcoin's growing popularity and increased attention under Trump are fueling the push. Miners in the US are setting the pace for the rest of the world. This all-time high proves one thing: Bitcoin is not just surviving but thriving, and its foundation has never been more solid. Now let's go back to Cathie Wood as she discusses further.
Bitcoin is backed by the largest computer network in the world, and therefore it is the safest cryptocurrency or crypto asset out there. It has not been hacked. The base layer has not been hacked. I don't think any other crypto asset can say that. So, this is like a giant neighborhood watch. You've got a lot of people whose livelihoods have been built on Bitcoin, starting with the miners in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and they are all watching to make sure that this ecosystem is as robust and hack-proof as possible. Well, there is one thing that the Bitcoin community is watching, and that is quantum computing. But as I always say, when it comes to risks, half of the solution is understanding the problem. And so now developers are thinking in terms of quantum proofing. So I think that is something we should consider seriously. And I am happy that, the developers are considering it seriously because, again, half the solution. Well, many people would call drawbacks like higher cost than other solutions, slower transaction settlement times. But to us, those are features, not flaws, because it's part of why it is the safest ecosystem in the crypto asset world. So we don't look at those as issues. We look at them as really they've been built into the ecosystem to assure its success as the safest crypto asset ecosystem. Gary Gensler, as I've said many times, has been a menace to our ecosystem and has pushed a lot of innovation associated with Bitcoin and other crypto assets into the rest of the world. So much so that many of the innovators who have moved to other parts of the world, whether it's Switzerland or Berlin or London or Hong Kong, Singapore, they will not deal with U.S. investors even. That's how bad it got.
Why? Why?
Because they think they'll be tainted because we are regulated by U.S. regulators.
And why are U.S. regulators so strict? Like more than any other part? When
you're a regulator, there's a lot of power seeking, and we know the history of the SEC and the CFTC. They've butted heads over the years, right? And we saw this during the derivatives, the evolution of derivatives in the 90s. And finally, with, I think, a Supreme Court ruling, they both regulate it, but regulate different parts of it. That is what I think was going on. There's a power struggle in the regulatory ecosystem. This is my purview. And so we may go to the Supreme Court again. I don't know. I think that was the main issue. 2011, Brett Winton, who's our chief futurist at ARK now, but who was the senior analyst on our research on strategic change at my prior firm, he came in, he had read an article, I don't know if it was might have been in The Economist, and he started talking about Bitcoin and crypto generally. And we were like, what? And so that happened one day, but then he became fixated on it and we had a brainstorm every Friday. And every Friday there would be a new story about Bitcoin. Now, it was so young back then, right?
This is back when it was about $1.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And there was no way to play it. And so we were thematic. So we were looking at it and trying to understand it and trying to figure out, is there anything here? This is a technology, yes, but it's also a monetary system. Could this play the three roles of money? And so, it was an interesting topic. When we started ARK, the two things we lumped back then, so this was 2014, were artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. But we lumped them into next-gen internet because they were both, even though AI has been around since the 50s, the very big breakthrough, the provocative breakthrough, was as a result of ImageNet and deep learning in 2012. So we were trying to figure out, is this important? Will this move the field of AI forward so that we'll have meaningful investments? So as I would say within the first 2 years, we separated next generation internet into artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. So they became 2 of 5 innovation platforms. The other 3 are robotics, energy storage, and multiomics sequencing. These are the 5 major platforms that are evolving today, sort of like telephone, electricity, and internal combustion engine. Those were multiple platforms evolving at the same time about 100 years ago. Now we have 5 evolving. And again, this is unprecedented and, just pretty exciting. So Bitcoin was back then, 2011, and our first investment, and this was, we had to ask permission from the New York Stock Exchange. Can we put it in an ETF? And they said, yes, you can put this GBTC into your fund, but only 1%. And we said, great. They didn't say that it couldn't rise from 1%. And so we let it rise. And of course, so it moved from $250 when we got in September of 2015. So toward the end of 2017, I think it hit $20,000. So swoosh.
Cathie Wood believes Bitcoin has already proven itself. It's a store of value, an insurance policy, and a powerful tool for financial freedom. Emerging markets rely on it, institutions are adopting it, and everyday people are starting to see its potential. It doesn't matter if you're a skeptic or a believer, Cathie Wood believes Bitcoin's trajectory is clear, and the $1.5 million prediction might just be the beginning. Anyway guys, before we go, if you want to stay most up to date on the crypto and Bitcoin world, make sure to subscribe to my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's a concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis, trusted by over 50,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stay informed in the crypto market. The link is in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and that it provided you with some value. I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, all the best.